So let's get started. You don't need to hear very much about me. I'm going to get you started on using this wonderful program. I've been using it, as Xander mentioned, since 2008. I have explored several other competing programs, and I'm convinced that MAXQDA is far and away the best for this sort of work that's available in the market. And I hope over the next 30 minutes to convince you of the same. But well done for finding this MAXDAYS conference and joining us. Let's get you started. So the first item on my agenda is to tour the working screen. And I'm just going to open a document so you can see some proper data on the screen rather than my agenda, but I'll come back to that agenda from time to time. So the MAXQDA working screen looks like this. It can be a bit daunting when you first start, but I hope to make you comfortable in it. On the right-hand side, we have what for years we've called the document browser. They've taken that title away from it just to make a bit more workable space. But this is where you can read your data. If it's text, if you're looking at images and video, they pop up here as well. But to start off by walking rather than running, we'll work with text data. So I've got the example project, the English language example project, which is called the Work-Life Balance project. So we've got some interview transcripts with people talking about how they balance work and home life and so on. So this is the document browser, and this is where you can read your data. I'm scrolling it up and down with my mouse wheel. We've got a margin on the left-hand side here where you can see in this example brackets where coding has already been done, and you can see a little bit, it's quite small print, but when it's your own work, you'll recognize these things from your own titles and so on. These are where codes have already been put in place. At the top of this screen, we have a row with a toolbar of functions that apply to this whole document, and the document title. This is an interview with someone we're calling Tan here. And underneath that is another toolbar with things that apply to different segments and sections of it. If I move to the left, we've got a different panel here which scrolls separately, and this is called the document system, or just documents. In MAXQDA, all data is described as being a document, even if it's a video or an audio or other sorts of things. It all goes into documents. That's just a little bit from its very earliest days as a text analysis program only. And as I hover my mouse over it, I'm getting some effects that I don't particularly want. But here in the document system, you can see the names of various people we've interviewed. If I switch to with a double click, I can open up the Kazumi interview in the document browser to the right, so I can move around. I'll go back to Tan. And you've got various numbers here. This is an example project with some work has already been done. And so we can see in these numbers how many coded segments exist in each document. So this gives you an idea of how much work has already been done in this example. Moving down to the code system down below. Now, codes are the sort of tags, the thematic ideas that we can attach to our documents. I mentioned them before in connection with the brackets over here. So in this panel, we can create and organize our codes and set things like their color. And you've got various numbers here which show how many segments are attached to each code. I'm just highlighting the education code here and pointing to the number 24. That is telling me that there are 24 segments attached to the education code at the moment. So we can organize our data by documents in the top, whole documents, and down here we can organize our analysis of it in codes by creating codes and attaching codes to data segments. The fourth panel is called Retrieve Segments, and it does keep its title here. Now, it's currently empty, but I can easily populate it by just activating something. And then I've got some data down here which satisfies the criteria that I've set I'll cancel those because I don't want to get too bogged down in that until it will make more sense later on. But this is where we get our first payback for the effort of coding. We can retrieve selected data by choosing which documents we want to access, multiple documents, and which codes, and they come and the data segments which match those criteria are put into this section here. Now, there are one or two other bits on the screen besides those 4 panels. Let's go up to the top now. The very top bar shows us the title, the file name of the project file that we're currently in. Almost all your work is stored in a single file, the project file, and you can back that file up at various stages of your work and so on. And it's useful to have your the name of the current file that you're working in displayed here, and I attach a date at the end of it, 2024-09-10, that's today's date. That's the project file that I'm working in, a special file for this session today. Underneath that, we have the menu bar, and beneath the menu bar, ribbons. So if I just click on the codes menu, we get the ribbon of things for the codes. If I go to the analysis ribbon, we get a different analysis menu. We get a different set of things. I'm going to stay in the home one for the moment, just getting us started. But that's how you can move around the menus. And at the right-hand end of the menu bar, we just have a little thing which can change the screen layout. I'll quickly switch it. We can have the retrieve segments to the right of the document browser. If you're lucky enough to have 2 screens or a particularly wide screen monitor, you might find this layout more useful. And it's just a quick switch with that button to go backwards and forwards between the 2. I'm just going to move that boundary down. We've got an undo and redo buttons here, and we have a sign in for signing into your MAXQDA account. Not necessary at first, but when you want to use the AI assist functions or the team cloud functions, you do need to sign in for those. Then look at the very bottom of the screen. We've got some buttons down here at the bottom, and I want to particularly draw your attention to the question mark, which opens up the help manual. I'm not going to do it at the moment. I'm not going to open up that because it just opens up my web browser, but there is lots and lots of help available to you. I will draw your attention to that, but you can open up the reference manual at any stage, the whole reference manual, and work through its indexes. Somebody's asking a question about interfaces, which is very well timed. Jorge, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. If I point to the preferences here, I can open up a preferences screen and go for this little set of different tabs and look at the interface language, because Jorge is asking, does MAXQDA have a Spanish interface? And I could indeed set it to Espanol. But I'm not going to go ahead because I do a restart and I'd get lost because I can't understand the Spanish menus. But you can set the interface language to be in Spanish if you want. That's quite independent of the language of your data. So if you want to have your menus in Spanish and your data in Arabic, MAXQDA will work quite fine. That will blow my tiny mind. I'm an Englishman, so I don't understand. I don't speak any other languages, unfortunately, but that's hopefully that's just satisfied Jorge there. Right, that's done the tour. Now I think what I want to do now is I'm going to start a totally new project, because I think the most difficult thing is to get started from scratch. On the home menu, I've got the possibility of opening a new project or an existing project. I'm going to use these buttons. When you first open the program from your desktop icon, you get a different layout but you can also choose to open an existing project or open the example projects. And you've got examples in 7 different languages here, including a Spanish example for Jorge. So you can go and look at a different one there, but I don't want those. So just click somewhere else. I'm going to start a wholly new project. So I've clicked on the new project and I'm going to put it on my desktop. It's always useful to work your projects, your current project file on something like your desktop, because MAXQDA writes and saves all the time as you're going along. And if you put it in a file, in a directory or a folder that is linked to the cloud and so on, it can slow your work down. So I'm going to call this project Demo 2024-09-10. Because that's today's date, and save it. MAXQDA is now opened up that new project file, and there you can see the project name at the very top, demo, and today's date in that funny order, but alphabetical sorts of that work into date order. And MAXQDA has defaulted to the import menu. It's full of good little habits, MAXQDA. The people who designed it are researchers like you, and so they build in as many little shortcuts. They know when you first start a new project, 9 times out of 10, the first task is to import data. So they make it default just to save you having to go to that. I'm going to go to the texts and import some text files. All these other specialized imports are for advanced work where you have specialized data. We haven't got time on this start one for that. So I'm just going to go to an import. MAXQDA also remembers where I last did this. So I'm going to find that TAN document from this little folder I've got here and open it. And that has brought the TAN document into the document system and opened it in my document browser, where it looks slightly different from the way before because there's no coding work done on it yet. Now, MAXQDA makes a lot of use of context menus. We've got the obvious ribbon menus at the top. We've got a toolbar in each of these windows, and I could import by pointing to that plus and selecting import documents again, and it will come back. Let's import Amadi and Kazumi, and 2 of them. We can bring in multiple documents and so on. But also, if I point to the documents here and do a right mouse click, MAXQDA makes a lot of use of context menus. I can do all sorts of things, including import documents this way. These are all the functions that I could do to my whole document system. So lots and lots of things that we can do. If I just point to this plus, I could also create a document group. Let's do that. And I'm going to call my document group Berlin, because I'm not feeling very imaginative. And now if I want, I could drag Amadi's document and put it into the Berlin group, and I could drag Kazumi and put Kazumi underneath Amadi, and so on, and TAN between them. Move my mouse very carefully. If I want TAN to go in that exact place, drop it when I get that black line, and TAN goes in between them. And so I can create and organize my documents. It's important that you know you can add more documents, you can reorganize it at any stage. It's quite independent of your coding. Any coding work you've done will move with the document, and so on. So that's how we can get started on getting some data in. Let's create some codes now. I could go to the codes menu, and I don't have a new code button up here, so there isn't one for that. But down here in the codes menu, I've got a new code button here on the toolbar. So let's create a little code group called work-life balance. I can't talk and type at the same time. Now there are 3 fields on the new code dialog: a title, a name, a label at the top. I can choose a color for it. Let's give it a bright red color. And a code memo. This is where I can store a definition for the code. There are lots of things you can do with code memos. Let me just for the moment, and I'm going to use that as a default for the new codes. Click OK. And there is my work-life balance has been added in the code system. But now I want to have some codes underneath it. If I point to that and to its plus, any new code I create now will be a subcode of work-life balance. So I'm going to have education. as a possible one and just click OK. And the education code comes in with the same color. Point to work-life balance again, click this, and I'm going to create one called childcare, because I know they talk a bit about that. If I want to make multiple codes, I can do this. Click on additional code. It's created the childcare. It remains in here, and I can put in friends and family. Hope I've typed that reasonably well, and click OK. And I've made 3 codes. I can change the color of a code at any time. I point to it, do a right click. Here's a context menu. I can open up the color mixture. I didn't mean that one. I got the wrong one there. I want to do that one. And I've got a sophisticated color mixer. This box shows me what color I'm using. Say I want to go for a bright blue, it shows me there. I can also drag this pointer around and change the color shades in all sorts of ways. Click OK, and childcare has been changed. You see, it's got a tiny little disc showing its color. But now let's attach some codes. Let me just highlight a paragraph here. Now, if I want to attach a code like childcare to this segment, I'm not going to worry too much about precise meanings. I'm just showing you the mechanics. The general logic in MAXQDA is you select a data segment, then you drag either the code from the code system onto the data. I drag from left to right, and I've attached the childcare to it. Or let's just choose another paragraph, or I can drag this and drop it on friends and family, say, by highlighting that over there, release the mouse pointer, and that is attached friends and family. I can drag either way between the document browser and the code system if I've already got a code. I can also do things like highlight a code and just shade it with a color like green. Didn't work. What happened? I chose the green pen, but I didn't shade it. Okay, what's going on here? Why am I not seeing the color? Something didn't work there. Try one last time. I want to attach the green coding. Okay, we won't worry too much about that for the moment. I was just trying to show you something extra, but what I could say, let's say I wanted to create a new code for that. There's a code on the toolbar for code with a new code. And so I could create a code called overtime, because that's what this person is talking about. So you can also, and let's say it gets a green color, and click OK. And the code overtime is added over here and attached to the data segment and so on. Lots of different ways you can work with your codes and your documents and so on. Lots of different ways you can apply codes and so on. Let me just show you one more thing. If I go back to the new code dialog, the help function. See this little white eye and a blue disc down here? When I hover over it, it says help. That would, if I clicked on that, it would open up the reference manual on the page for the new code dialog. So that's a better way of getting help. You choose a function, you start using the function, and you go for the help directly from within the function, and it then tells you something that is relevant to what you're trying to do at the moment. Right, so we've imported some documents, we've created some codes, we've attached a few codes. Time is short. I'm going to go back to my previous project that I had before and open it, the full work-life balance code project with lots and lots of coding and so on. And here we are. Now these numbers should make a bit more sense. You can see what I've done. There's the education code. It's now been attached to lots of things. Somebody's asking, how do we retrieve coded segments? Let me show you that, and then I'll go in more detail to your question. So to get stuff into this retrieve segments panel, I just want to make it a little bit bigger, drag that up there a little bit. Now I've got a bigger retrieve segments. We need the concept of activation. This is a key concept in MAXQDA terminology. If I point to a document in the document system, say Selim, and just click on the word Selim, I get a highlight. Nothing else happens, nothing else changes. But if I were to click on the document symbol just a few millimeters to the left, I haven't clicked at the moment, you may see I'm hovering over it and it says activate. Various things change. If I click on this little file symbol, Selim has now been activated. The highlight is a slightly different color, and a tiny purple disk has appeared to the left, and a new symbol has appeared on the toolbar with a 1 showing 1 activated document. Let me activate TAN, and you can see above Selim has a pink highlight. I've now got 2 documents activated, and I can also activate by pointing to the little tiny circle at the left and click on that, and now Chris has been activated. Click somewhere else, and you can see those 3 activated documents and a 3 up there. So click in these folders. This says reset activations. If I click on this in the toolbar, all of them are deactivated. If I click in the folder for Berlin, or the little disk to the left, I can activate all the Berlin documents in one go. If I now do the same in the code system and click on the education code, say, now I've got 1 code activated, 5 documents, and I've got some data in my retrieved segments. All of these data are segments which have been coded with the code education, and they fall within the interviews in Berlin group of documents, and I can scroll up and down. So this is how I start to get the payback. And furthermore, if I click on the code bracket here in the retrieve segments, all of the windows synchronize around this segment. It comes from an interview with Selim. It's coded to education. So education is highlighted in the codes. Selim is highlighted in the documents. Selim has been opened in the document browser, and the same segment is visible up here. This is really useful because now I can see the segment in context. In particular, I can read what question had been asked, what questions Selim was answering when he made these remarks, or she made these remarks, not quite sure. But down here in the retrieve segments, I can see the same segment and compare it with what somebody else has said. So I can see the context up here, and I can see a comparison with other people down here. I'll take your questions in a moment. I'm just going to do a couple more things. Because I said we'd explore looking for patterns in the data, and that's what I want to do now. So I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to reset the activations in the code system, and I'm now going to activate all of the work-life balance codes as well. That's 8 codes and 5 documents. I've now got 61 coded segments in my retrieve segments. That's much too much data to work with in this way. So if I go to my Visual Tools menu, I can open the Code Matrix browser. There's another help reference here. So if you want to read more about the Code Matrix browser, open it up this way and click on this little I here to read the help. But for now, I'm going to click the OK. And now I get an exciting table on my screen. It popped up in front. Hopefully you can see that pop up as well. Give me a shout, anybody, if you can't see my Code Matrix browser. I hope I've done the screen share in the right way for you to see.
We can see it.
You can see, Xander?
Yep.
Good. Okay, so now I've got a table with a column for each of my interviews and a row for each of the codes. So these are giving me the columns, and these are giving me the rows. And in each cell of the table, I can see how many coded segments exist. So this 7 here is telling me that in the Selim interview, there are 7 segments coded to friends and family. It seems to me that one thing I can think about is that Selim has talked about his friends and family quite a lot. He doesn't talk about domestic work nearly so much. But then not many of them talk about domestic work. With this button, I can add or remove row and column totals, which help give me some context. With these buttons, I can turn them into symbols, which tell me in visual clues, whether squares or circles, which has talked most and who has talked least. And I can vary those symbols by reading them via the column or the row. That gives me different symbol sizes according to columns and rows. All sorts of things we can do with these, or I can give a heat map, shading, or just the numbers. I've got complete control with those. Lots of other things I can do. I can add in more codes. even within working, it's immensely flexible, and I can remove things as well, and so on. And last thing, I could switch from here back to my qualitative data. Now, this is the last thing I'm going to show, and then I'm going to start answering the questions. This opens up something called the segment matrix, which is the same table. I've got a column for each of my people. I've got rows for each of my codes. But as soon as I click on a code like childcare, in here, I get all the data segments coded to childcare. Remember, Selim and Tan were the only two that were coded to childcare. The others perhaps don't have children. And I can scroll these columns independently of each other. So I can move up and down to compare their data. Let me take something else like friends and family, which has got much more data. And now I can go back fully into my qualitative paradigm, and I can make comparisons across all of these. This is much better than the retrieve data, retrieve segments panel, because I've got many more people, and I can look at more segments side by side, and I can make much more interesting comparisons by scrolling these columns independently of each other. Everything else is still behind it. I could minimize that and look back at my code matrix browser. It's dropped down somewhere. Where can I find it? I think it's right down here. I can restore it back up and still look at those data segments. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to close this, and I'm now going to start looking at some questions, which I can see. Somebody who has given us their name. How do you retrieve coded segments for specific attributes within a particular folder of documents? If you have an attribute regarding level of confidence, extremely confident, and so on, is this possible? Yes. Everything is possible, almost certainly. My anonymous attendee, I didn't mention the variables part, but by using document variables, you can add, let me pull up a pop-up here. What am I doing? Okay, I want to move that up. I can add things like educational level or your confidence status as variables and get their values in here. And then by using the activation facility here, I can choose to let me reset. I can activate based on variable values. So I can choose to activate all of the slightly confident ones and so on. Or by going into the mixed methods and using the cross tab, I can actually make a table that way. But I'm getting a little bit carried away. Shirley asks, how do codes go from code groups if they didn't start that way? A very good question, Shirley. Let me just go back to home and go back to my previous project, because I think it's a slightly better one for you to see that. So I go back to this one. I can drag codes around. So if I take my overtime and drag it and drop it when education is highlighted, it becomes a subcode of education. Or if I drag it and drop it when friends and family are underlined, it becomes at the same level as that, i.e. a subcode of work-life balance, but in that particular position. So by dragging codes around, you can make them subcodes of each other. And if I go really stupid here, I can show you that you can have actually many levels of subcode. Totally meaningless, totally ridiculous what I've just done, but it just demonstrates. As beginners, I strongly recommend you limit yourself to only 2 or 3 levels of code, of subcodes. And in the document system, you can have 2 levels of grouping. Another anonymous person, I'm working with focus group data. Okay, that's a little bit beyond the scope of this introductory one. No need to create separate projects in MAXQDA for your 2 different focus groups with the same research questions. Have them in the same project. They will come. Now, if I go back to my example project, we have got a focus group in this example. If I scroll down a bit here, we've got a focus group here. Now it's just we have just got one focus group, but there's nothing to say you can't import a second focus group and have it as another document. It would just come, we'd have focus group 1 and we'd have focus group 2 underneath here. Nothing wrong with that at all. And then you can code both to the same code system using the same codes, and then you'll find it much easier to compare and contrast your two focus groups. Transcribing and coding audio data, there will be sessions on that, or there are recorded webinars. That's a huge topic, but it is certainly possible. Within the import function, you can import audio files and you can transcribe within MAXQDA. Or most people are using automated transcription services outside of MAXQDA, I think. I'm not quite sure. I'm not behind the curve there. And import your audio and your transcript and so on. Another one, if you have 1,000 codes altogether from the transcript, how do you sort these primary codes into secondary codes or focus codes in MAXQDA, especially if you're doing grounded theory? 1,000 codes is rather too many. You've got a bit carried away there, but I'm doing a session tomorrow afternoon, I think, on creative coding, which will answer that question rather more length. So look for my session on creative coding. I think it's about an hour later than this tomorrow afternoon. Iris, can we have the aggregated data in the code matrix browser? Compare the aggregate data by. Most certainly. That's a good question. Let me minimize these two. If I activate Berlin and Hamburg and activate the work-life balance and go to my visual. Sorry, I gave a lot to do. Go to my visual tools and look at my code matrix browser. I could choose, instead of documents, to have document groups and click OK. And there we are. Oh, no, I've got too high a level now. I don't want the top level. I want the second level. OK. And now I've got Berlin and Hamburg. There you go. Depending on just how you've organized your groups, there's a top level and a second level. And in the setup dialog, I got that. So that answers that one. Jaroslaw, how do we code photos or videos? How do we export these fancy matrices into a Word document? Well, the export to Word is via this little drop-down menu here. And I can export, oh, no, actually, I think if I go there, I can export as an image or to Excel, because it's a table, or there's a general export function there. But MAXQDA has something in the analysis one called QTT, Questions, Themes, and Theories, which is a very good, it's this little funny icon here. If you export your table into that, you can store lots of things, these fancy matrices, as you call them. You can export those, pass those into your QTT and collect them there, and then from there take them on into Word documents with more comments and things as well. I won't go into coding photos and videos. That's a slightly bigger topic now. Another one, can there be discussion and demo about retrieving patterns of adjacent codes? Oh yes, there's lots and lots of stuff on that. Can we use some kind of automate AI coding? Oh, there's going to be a lot of talk about AI assist, and AI assist is not generally doing coding for you yet. MAXQDA is inching towards that. At the moment, we're asking AI can suggest codes for us, but we're not doing AI coding. That's still a step too far, because we want to retain a certain element of control. Be careful what you wish for. When the day comes when AI can do all the coding, you no longer have a job. So be a little bit cautious about that. How do I combine codes when I find them too close to one another? A very good question. Again, yes, you can certainly do that. Let me reset my activations down here. Say I wanted to merge childcare and domestic work. There are various ways of doing this, but if I do a right click on childcare to get the context menu, I've got move coded segments. Click on that. They've gone temporarily onto a clipboard. Now do a right click on childcare, click on the and copy coded segments. And they should have come in there. What happened? Sorry, paste coded segments. That's what I want. Paste coded segments from childcare. And now domestic work has got 19. It only had 12 before. I duplicated the childcare for some reason. I need to do some undoing here. Hopefully I've got those back. So use the context menu and explore that, but it is certainly possible to combine codes and so on. Is it possible to import text data from spreadsheet files? Yes, in the import functions, text, PDFs, and tables. So Excel you can bring in. For text analysis, it's better to have it in plain documents. Spreadsheets give us more problems, but I'm doing a session later this afternoon on survey data, which is a special import. We've got import survey data, which is a particular spreadsheet one there. How do you create a table of findings from coded segments in imported newspapers? Well, the imported newspapers become your documents. You then got to code those newspapers, and your Visual Tools Code Matrix browser will be that table when you've done the coding, I think. Another one, what if we've created different projects for the same questions for different focus groups? Is it possible to merge the codes of the two projects? You can merge two projects. I think if you've already gone a little bit and opening up separate projects, look into the from the home merge projects. Go and read the help manual about merging projects, because I think that's what you probably need to do. You give yourself problems by putting things in separate projects because you've got to keep on moving from one project to another. MAXQDA is there to help you combine things. So bring them all into one project. In this example, we've got interviews, focus groups. We have got images. So sorry, somebody was asking me, how can I code an image? I forgot that I've got an example here that I can use. So if I want to create a code for an image, I simply draw a box around something like someone's head, and drag a code onto it, and I've attached the code childcare to that image. If I now activate that document and the childcare code in my retrieved segments, this is what we see. We see just that bit of the head. So that's how you can work with images. Do we have a manual for first-time users? Well, the handout. Download the handout from this session. That'll get you started, and then the reference manual will take you on. Can you split a document into several single documents with all interviews, and you want them arranged by individual documents in MAXQDA? That sounds to me like something you'd probably do better outside of MAXQDA, creating multiple documents in something like Microsoft Word, and then import those. If you brought too much in one document, yes, I think I'd be inclined to start again. Ask there'll be various people asking how you can access recordings, but all of these things are being recorded and they will be available. You're very welcome, Blanchard. Angie, my activated codes don't appear in the retrieve segments. Is it because my version is not the analytic? No. If you've got to activate some documents as well to get something into the retrieved segments, you've got to have, I've got nothing in my retrieve segments. I've got to have both some documents activated, like my Berlin interviews, and some codes, like my work situation. Then I get data in the retrieve segments. If you haven't got both, at least one document and at least one code, and also there must be, the document you've chosen must have that code present in it. Go and try that again. Can we compare codes based on focus group speakers' gender? A very advanced question. The short answer is yes. I'm not going to tell you how now because time is short and I need to finish in a moment. There is no, another one, what's the maximum number of subcodes I can create using open? There is no maximum. But if you create too many, you'll just tie yourself up in knots. You're beginners, be modest. Be slightly cautious. Limit yourself to tens of codes, not hundreds of codes. Somebody mentioned 1,000 codes. That's totally unwieldy. You might as well not have coded at all if you've got so many. Be broader in your coding because you can always break down significant codes into more detail later on. But to begin with, fewer codes is better than too many, but there's no maximum. You've only talked about coded data. What about other analyses like categorization? Okay, I think of codes as like categories, but I didn't talk about very much about variables, which is another way where you can categorize your cases. And I haven't talked about writing memos, which is another way that you can do analysis by writing about your data. I only had 30 minutes to talk about, and I had a lot to cover. But yes, all these things are possible, Blanchard. IME. How can I effectively assign metadata categories like political party affiliation or company sector to newspaper articles? That's where you need these variables. Look on this section. Open up the list of document variables and go for the reference manual. Here's a reference manual link where you can read all about it from there. So open up your document variables and go for the help on that. Akanksha, how do we do content? This is a beginner's one, please. Look at content analysis in the reference manual is the quick answer to that. Linda, you're very welcome. Is it possible to export coded segments, export coded documents with timestamps? Timestamps implied that you've got a transcript linked to something. I believe, yes, it certainly is. I don't know if I've got, let me just reset some things here. I've got an interview here now. Can I show the timestamps? Certainly got the timestamps there. I want to see what, no, I'm doing the wrong thing there. Cancel, perhaps it's in here. I'm looking for something saying display timestamp column. There we are. There's the timestamp column and the timestamps. And if I want to export this document, I've got an export function here. And do I want to display timestamps? There we are. Put a tick in that, and there is the answer to your question. I can export and do I want to export the coded segments? Display the coded segments as well. Follow that through and you'll be okay. I'm not going to go ahead with it. It would tie me up in knots. But yes, all these things are possible. Oh dear, I can't pronounce your first name, Pinar. I've retrieved the documents I'd like to analyze from a Citavi project in RIS format. Okay, so now you're into literature reviewing. That's too big a question for me right now because I've got to be stopping. We've come to the end of this session. Look at the import timestamps. What do we want? Import. I think you want to look for import transcripts and so on. How do we do content analysis? I can't answer that. This is just getting you started. You can export coded segments with timestamps. Yes. How do I make categories in MAXQDA? Well, categories is another word for codes. Codes and categories, they're slippery concepts. I think you probably mean codes, but you might be talking about variables as another one. I can't really answer that in the time because I'm running. I've got to stop very moment. Yes, you can share my handout, Alicia, with your students. Very happy for you to do that. Yes, that is allowed. Bibliography, can I code these documents alongside? Yes, you can code your bibliography. There's a special import for the bibliography, I think.